Hello everybody and welcome to the next mitzvah video. So if you'll give me a second, I will attempt to look at where we left off. So we left off at number 412 of 613. Okay, so we're about 200 more rules away before we're done. Okay, so the next one is an apostate must not eat from the paschal lamb. As we learned last time, paschal is a word used for Passover lamb. Okay, so apostate is someone who has abandoned a faith. They have abandoned their current faith. A person who has renounced their religion or political view or belief. They have abandoned, okay, or renounced their faith. Okay, that's Exodus 12:43. A hired servant or traveler must not eat from the paschal lamb, Passover lamb. Exodus 12:45. An uncircumcised male must not eat from the paschal lamb, the Passover lamb. Exodus 12:48. No bone of the paschal lamb shall be broken. Exodus 12:46. Not to break any bones from the second paschal offering. Numbers 9:12. Not to leave any of the lamb over until morning. So not to leave any of the second paschal lamb, the second paschal lamb meat until morning. So basically the second paschal lamb, Passover lamb, should be eaten, all of it. Okay, and by morning nothing should be left. Numbers 9:12. Eat the Passover meat entirely on the night it is offered. Deuteronomy 16:4. To be seen at the temple 3 times a year, on Passover, on Shavuot or Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, and the Sukkot, the Festival of Booths. Deuteronomy 16:16. To celebrate and bring a peace offering in pilgrimage on these 3 festivals. To celebrate and to bring a peace offering during your pilgrimage, during your travels on these 3 festivals. Exodus 23:14. To rejoice on these 3 festivals. Deuteronomy 16:14. Not to appear at the temple for annual festivals without offerings. Deuteronomy 16:16. Not to refrain, or in other words, not to stop yourself or others from rejoicing with and giving gifts to the Levites. Deuteronomy 12:19. Every 7 years on Sukkot, the festival of booths, to assemble all the people and to read the law. Deuteronomy 31:12. To consecrate to God the firstborn of man and beast. Exodus 13:12. The priests must not eat of the unblemished firstborn animals outside of Jerusalem. Deuteronomy 12:17. The firstborn of clean animals cannot be redeemed. So if it's an acceptable offering, it cannot be taken back. You cannot take it back. It cannot be redeemed or saved. It must be given as an offering. If it's unclean, then it has to be redeemed. That is Numbers 18:17. Separate the tithe from the animals. Okay, Leviticus 27:32. Do not exchange a good animal for a bad or for a tithe. Okay, Leviticus 27:33. Every person must bring a sin offering for his transgression. Leviticus 4:27. Now the verses I'm giving you are rough estimates of where things should be. And my cat's being crazy. An unintentional sin, meaning a sin that you did not intend on doing, requires a sin offering when you discover it. When you discover that sin, you need to do a sin offering. Leviticus 5:17 and 18. So let me put it a way that you would understand. Me, before, I did not know that eating my woman, for lack of better words, was sodomy. Now that I know that sodomy, I understand it's sin. You understand? But before, I was doing an unintentional sin. I had no clue I was doing a sin. I was blind to the sin. Okay? So the reference is, if you are aware of your sins, you need to make atonement with God for it. That means repentance nowadays. Because remember, the price for all sin has been paid through Yahshua. Okay? A guilt offering is required when one deals with deceitfulness, lying. Leviticus 5:25. For certain sins, a wealthy person will offer an animal, and the poor will offer doves or pigeons or meals as prescribed. Leviticus 5:7 through 11. The court must bring an offering when it rules in error, when it makes an error of judgment, or when the community sins. The courts must do it. Leviticus 4:13. A woman with an irregular discharge. And I'm assuming that means somewhere down there something's not something's not. In other words, women normally have periods, so this would be a woman that has bleeding and stuff. So a good example would be the one in the Bible with the woman who was bleeding for 12 years. That would be an irregular discharge, a not normal discharge. Must bring an offering after she goes to the ritual bath. Leviticus 15:28 to 29. A woman who gives birth must bring an offering after she immerses herself or puts herself in the ritual bath. Leviticus 12:6. A man is cured of a chronic discharge, okay, who is cured of a chronic discharge must bring an offering after immersing himself in the ritual bath. Leviticus 15:13 through 14. One who is cured of a skin disease must bring an offering after immersing in the ritual bath. Leviticus 14:10. Now, if you remember, when Jesus had healed many of the people of their diseases, he said, don't say anything, go to the temple and make the right offering. Remember that? So he was telling them, obey the law. Even though I'm here, obey the law. Still obey the law. Okay? Next one. One who is cured of a skin disease. I just read that one. That's Leviticus 14:10. Not to substitute another beast for one that is scheduled or dedicated for a sacrifice. Leviticus 27:10. The new animal, along with the substituted one, retains consecration. They are made holy. In other words, Leviticus 27:10. Not to change consecrated animals from one type of offering to another. Leviticus 27:26. Everyone under a roof with a corpse is unclean. So, for example, if you're living in a house and your father or mother dies in their sleep, everyone in that household is now unclean biblically until you guys have until you went into the bathe and have been cleansed in the proper way. That is Numbers 19:14. Carry out the procedure of the red heifer. Numbers 19:9. So we need to look at what a red heifer is. Okay. And it might be heifer, I think. Heifer. So a red heifer is actually a red female cow. Okay. It's a female bovine, meaning cow, which has never been pregnant, never been milked, never been yoked, also known as the red cow. Okay. And it was brought to the priests as a sacrifice according to the Torah, and its ashes were used in ritual purification of corpse uncleanliness. Okay. So that is that one. Okay. So in other words, when it says carry out the procedure of a red heifer, that means if you this is connected to the one above it, talking about if a corpse is found in your house, the whole house is unclean. You would then have to take a red heifer and go and offer that to the temple. Okay, and a red heifer, as it says, would be a cow that has never been milked, a cow that has never been pregnant, a cow that is red by color, as well as many other things. That is Numbers 19:9, and that would cleanse it. A clean person sprinkles water on those who are unclean. Okay, Numbers 19:21. The priest's role is governed by the law when dealing with matters of skin disease. Leviticus 13:12. So the priest's role is governed by what the law has to say. Okay. The afflicted must not remove the signs of impurity. So if you are impure, you're not supposed to cover up your signs of impurity, because you don't want other people to fall into being unclean or things like that. That would be the idea. Deuteronomy 24:8 for that. The afflicted must not shave signs of impurity in his hair. Leviticus 13:33. A skin-diseased person will tear his clothes, grow his hair long, and cry out, "Unclean, unclean." Leviticus 13:45. Carry out the procedures for purifying the person with skin disease. Leviticus 14:2. The diseased person must shave off all his hair prior to purification. Leviticus 14:9. To discover when a leprous or a person with leprosy infection is on a garment. So basically, you need to discover when someone's leprous infection has gotten onto your garment, from what it says. Leviticus 13:47. To discover when a house is infected by a skin disease. That's what discovery means, to search, to make an examination. Same as if you want to discover if your house is infected with insects or bugs, you search your house for evidence of that. Same as like if you want to know if there's mice in your house, you look for the mice droppings. You look for signs of like packages that have been chewed on or gnawed on or something like that. Okay, so let me give you an example of evidence. I once had a cat who went outside, and when the next morning arose, I went into the kitchen. There was tons of feathers all over the ground. I'm like, what the heck? And all I found was what looked like a little gallbladder and a foot. I had no clue that the cat had gotten hold of a bird and ate the bird overnight, unless it was for the evidence being shown. Does that make sense? Okay. Leviticus 14:35 for that one. To observe the laws of menstrual impurity. This is basically saying that a woman who is, in the Bible, it says a woman who is on her period is impure until she's done with her period. What the menstrual cycle is it's the cycle of your body cleansing out the old eggs. The old, kind of like, principle would be kind of like same as you opening your fridge and you're smelling the eggs that have gone bad, or you crack an egg open and you see it started to turn yellow or different colors, and you could tell it's bad by the smell or whatever, right? It's the same thing. You would take those eggs and you would toss them out, right? You would cleanse out your fridge of the bad eggs, of the bad things. The woman's menstrual cycle does the exact same thing. It cleanses out the impurities, the things that have gone bad, okay, to make room for new. Leviticus 15:19. To observe, for the next one, to observe the laws of impurity caused by childbirth. Leviticus 12:2. To observe the laws of impurity caused by an irregular discharge. Leviticus 15:25. To observe the laws of impurity caused by a man's chronic discharge. Leviticus 15:3. To observe the laws of impurity caused by contact with a dead animal. Leviticus 11:39. To observe the laws of impurity caused by contact with the 8 named swarming creatures. Leviticus 11:29. Observe the laws of impurity of seminal emissions. What does that mean? It means seminal is where we come from the word semen, which means man's ejaculation, man's sperm, basically. Okay. Emissions is the ejection of something. So the ejection of seminal fluids, semen, in other words. Okay, so observe the laws of impurity of that. Leviticus 15:16. Observe the laws of impurity concerning liquid and solid foods. Which foods are clean, which foods are not, kind of thing. Leviticus 11:34. Okay. Every impure person must immerse himself in a ritual bath to become pure. Leviticus 15:16. Okay. So we're going to stop there for that one. Okay. So thank you for joining on this. I appreciate you joining on this. I appreciate you coming on the live and enjoying this live. Okay. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope that you have a blessed day and more learning of this ruling, of these rules that the Jewish had to live by. And you see just how long and complicated these rules were to keep. That's why it's so difficult. That's why no flesh shall be justified in his name. So thank you guys for joining. Have a blessed day.